Okay, so can you all see my screen? Perfect. All right. Okay, guys. So before we start, I will just let you all know that I will be, asking questions. Okay. So if any of you would like to answer, please feel free to unmute yourselves and give your answers. Okay. Okay, perfect. So today's topic is inside her mind, right? So now I know that it may sound like this is designed exclusively for women, but I would like to let you all know that it does not have to be just for women. Even if men are there, you can definitely benefit from today's session. Okay, so we're going to talk about the thought patterns of women and some of the marital conflicts that may experience inability to understand or coexist in marriage. Okay, and some of the emotional needs that a woman may experience and how as a man you can deal with it. Okay, so let's start with the first question, and that is because as you know it talked about overthinking, right? So when was the last time you fell into overthinking? Can somebody answer? When was the last time you fell into overthinking? Anyone? Okay, somebody says they they fall into overthinking every day. Okay, daily. All right. Anyone else? Or is there somebody here who has never ever fallen into overthinking? Is there somebody like that? Okay, somebody says last night. Okay. Okay, another person says last night. Perfect. All right. So, we know that overthinking is something that we all get into, right? It's something that no human can escape. It's like that, right? Now, I will give you a very imaginatory situation, okay? And I want you to think about it, okay? Now, I know that since each and every one of us are a victim to overthinking, just think like a layman, okay? Now, imagine you have a crucial interview to attend tomorrow, okay? You've been waiting for this opportunity for the last 2 years, and it finally appears close to falling on your lap. However, not cracking the interview would mean having to wait for the next opportunity in a year's time, and you've been unemployed for the past 1 year. So, what might some of your typical thoughts look like? Now, this is a critical situation for most of us, right? You've been unemployed for the past 1 year. Now, you know how desperately you are in need of a job, right? And you have been wanting to get into this particular company for the past 2 years, for this opportunity for the past 2 years, and finally you're getting it. If you don't crack this interview, you have to wait for another year, right? So this is a very, it might seem like a really critical, a daunting situation. Now I would like to know what could some of your thoughts look like. So you can quickly send me in the chat box what might your thoughts look like during a time like this. Anyone? If you do not want to type, you can feel free to unmute yourselves, okay? And you can give in your answers. Everybody is welcome to do so. Okay, I'm waiting for responses. During a time like this, our brains are just it's going to be, our mind is going to be extremely chaotic, right? You're going to have the worst possible thoughts. You're going to think, oh my god, I may not crack it, or what if I don't do it, what if it's going to be a complete mess, what if I mess up during the interview, what will the interviewers think of me, and what would happen if I don't get the job. The thoughts are endless, right? We fall into this loop of overthinking. It would consume us so much that we may not even be able to actually prepare for the event, right? So that's how overwhelming and consuming overthinking can be. Okay, now I have to tell you, I have to give you a fact, okay? And I think most of you probably know that women are generally more likely to overthink and experience anxiety than men. Okay, they tend to repeat conversations in their heads and freak out about the next impending doom. Women are significantly more likely to experience anxiety disorders than men, with lifetime prevalence rates roughly 1.5 to 2 times higher in women. Globally, women report higher rates of anxiety, approximately 22% versus 11% for men. And studies indicate roughly 1 in 3 women will definitely experience an anxiety disorder in their lifetime compared to 1 in 5 men, right? So now this shows us that women, obviously, I don't think we need studies to prove us this fact. I think basic common sense is going to tell us that women actually freak out more, right, than men. The reason being, women are more experience emotions much intense, more intense than men, right? And most of us do know that they freak out and panic about situations more so, and they worry about certain situations more so than men. And we all know that overthinking and anxiety go hand in hand, right? When you fall into the loop of overthinking, you're more likely to fall into the loop of anxiety as well, because it's just one leading to another, or it's vice versa, right? Somebody has asked if this session can be in Urdu. I'm sorry, I'm not fluent in Urdu. uh, I'm really sorry about that. Okay. So yeah, so as we already mentioned, overthinking is definitely more likely to happen in women. Now we will see why, and what are some of the patterns in which women experience overthinking, right? So overthinking, it could usually manifest in the form of, first thing is chronic rumination, that is excessively dwelling on the past, and second thing is anticipatory anxiety, that is future oriented worry. Third thing is catastrophizing, that is imagining the absolute worst case scenario. And fourth one is analysis paralysis, that is overthinking choices excessively, right? So when we say, especially in terms of marriage, or especially in terms of marital life, it involves replaying conversations, catastrophizing scenarios, or even second guessing your decisions, leading to mental exhaustion, sleep disruption, and high stress levels. Okay, now we will just see what chronic rumination, what each of these things look like. Okay, so when we say rumination, it means replaying your past conversations over and over again in your head, or mistakes or interactions, just to analyze what went wrong. It could have been a very small event, right? It could have been an insignificant event also, but you keep going back to it in your head over and over again, right? And second thing is, you excessively analyze every little and big details from the events. Let's say you attended an event, you attended a social gathering, you probably said something, or you probably did something which probably was not that big of a deal, but then you're thinking, how would that person have thought? Or what if they never talk to me again? What if I can never attend such events? What if they all completely treat me like an outcast? So these are some of the most common consuming thoughts we could have, right? And reliving painful emotions experienced in the past as though they were happening in the present. So that is also a form of rumination, like when you feel like you've been wronged, or when you feel like something very terrible happened to you in the past. Rumination might look like reliving those painful emotions all over again, right? And one more thing is extreme mood and behavioral changes consequentially, which could manifest in the form of coldness or bitterness towards the partner or the person involved. Okay, so if it's something to do with your marital life, or if you feel like it has been your partner who has harmed you, or or hurt you in any way, you could, reliving those memories, or reliving those emotional experiences could leave you with a terrible mood. And it could also show in the way, in the form of behavioral changes, right? You could be cold, and your husband just left clueless. Okay, what is happening? Why is she angry at me? Right? So this is what rumination looks like. Okay. And next is anticipatory anxiety, that is, you are anticipating something in the future, right? That is what it means. So persistent what if thoughts about the future. What if my marriage doesn't work out, or what if this person thought the worst of me, or what if I'm going to lose my friends, or what if I'm going to fall sick. The options and the thoughts are endless, right? So this is what anticipatory anxiety looks like. like intense worrying about the possible occurrence of a fearful event in the future. So you're going to think that the worst, like imagine the worst case scenario to prepare for potential problems, that the absolute worst is going to happen in your life, right? That the worst, only the worst, right? I could just completely lose it all, or everybody's going to hate me, or nobody's going to talk to me. And so that is just your brain, your mind preparing you for potential problems in the future, right? And third one is physical sensations such as increased heart rate or palpitations, muscle tension, trouble sleeping, etc., are commonly experienced. Now, we know that our mind and body are strongly interconnected, right? So, when the mind is experiencing something, it will definitely show in the form of physical sensations, and vice versa, right? When you're sick, it could also reflect in your mind, right? So, obviously, there's going to be an increased heart rate and palpitations, and you're going to feel your hands are going clammy, sweaty, and you will have some issues in your stomach. You might not be able to sleep, you might not be able to eat properly. So these are all some of the common things that you experience when you're experiencing anticipatory anxiety, okay? And catastrophizing, now it's very similar to the anticipatory anxiety. This is blowing it out of proportion, right? Blowing a small mistake or a small situation way out of proportion. For example, i'm going to if I'm going to think that when I'm giving a speech I'm going to make a mistake, and everybody is going to think of me as a fool, then it is me catastrophizing, right? It's blowing it way out of proportion, right? And assuming the worst possible outcome and feeling strongly about it. For example, after what I did the other day, she will never talk to me or ever face me again, right? So that doesn't have to be the case. This is just magnifying and blowing it way out of proportion, okay? And one more thing, one more pattern that in which women engage in overthinking is analysis paralysis. That is, you you over analyze to the extent of not being able to reach a conclusion at all, right? But no decision is made, or second guessing decisions that are already made, right? For example, if I wear this outfit tonight, I may look overdressed, but if I wore the other one, people might think I have a boring taste. I think I look bad in both, right? So if I'm going to think if I'm going to think and overanalyze both my choices, I don't know what I might do, right? It might become nearly impossible for me to make that choice. I could probably want to eat at KFC, or I could choose to eat at McDonald's. If I'm torn between both, and if I'm overanalyzing both, I might not be able to, go to either of the places, right? So that is what analysis paralysis is. So these are some of the common ways in which women overthink, right? They could either be ruminating excessively about a past situation, or they could be drowning themselves in worry about the future, or they could be, blowing it out. Sorry, they could be, catastrophizing. Yes, blowing it way out of proportion, or they could be, excessively overanalyze the situation, right? So do you all understand what I'm saying? Like, if you do, just give me a thumbs up, right? Are you all with me? Perfect. Lovely. Okay, okay, all right. So we'll move on to the next slide. Okay, right. So now you might wonder, right? Like, why are women doing this? Why why do they have to make life so hard for themselves, right? We'll just look into it. There are some reasons why women fall into patterns of overthinking. So first is perfectionism and people pleasing. Now women have this tendency to be perfect, right? They love being perfect. They want to be perfect in everything they do, right? And they also have the need to seriously please people, right? She wants to be this perfect mother. She wants to be perfectly dressed. She wants to be well dressed. She wants to be the best cook. She wants to have a booming career. She wants to be the most gentle parent, and whatnot. The list is endless. So whatever she wants to do, she wants to make sure that she is on top of her game, right? And second thing is people pleasing. Like, she would want to ensure that everybody is like thoroughly pleased with her, right? So this is one of the reasons why she engages in overthinking. Second is to facilitate emotional scanning. Now, when in during times during in certain relationships where she is not openly openly told about her behaviors, or or what is wrong with her, what could go wrong with her behaviors, she starts to look for cues. She starts to look for clues to identify what how that other person is feeling. That is what emotional scanning is, to look for the other person's facial expressions, their body gestures, and subtle cues here and there, to understand what could possibly be going on in that person's mind, right? So for that, she needs to think, she needs to overthink, right? So that is also another reason. And third is fear of disapproval. Now a woman is always striving to approve everybody around her, right? She wants the approval of everyone. She wants to be loved and accepted by everyone. So she has the fear of receiving disapproval from her peers, her family, her partner, her kids. So she has to be in this constant vigilant mode, where she is overthinking, and she's ensuring that everything is being taken care of, right? And finally, it could be relationship uncertainties. Now if this is a relationship situation that we're talking about, right? A woman, and if she's not so sure about the status of her relationship, or if the husband is not the most expressive person, he doesn't communicate to her. If let's say she's made a really nice meal for her husband, and if husband doesn't say anything about it, right? So she's looking for clues, okay, on his face, like does he like it, does he not? She's looking for his bodily gestures and facial expressions, to just see, does he like it, why is he not saying anything, does he hate it? So these are some of the thoughts that are running through her head, right? So these are all the reasons why a woman falls into overthinking, okay? And it is especially during those moments, right? During such moments of intense emotional turmoil, what women seek the most is emotional comfort. Okay, so I know the emotional life, the emotional experiences of a woman is very intense. Okay, apparently, studies show that women experience emotions 8 times more intensely than a man. Right, so if a man is sad, she's experiencing it 8 times more. If a man is fearful, is scared, she's experiencing it 8 times more. The experience, the intensity of the experience is into 8. So you can imagine how overwhelming that experience is for her, right? So during that time, what she's going to look for the most is the calm, the warmth of her husband's presence and his words, right? A partner with whom a woman can candidly confide in and receive acknowledgement for her experiences and fears. Now I know that there are a lot of women here, right? I know it's a mixed crowd. There are also men and also women. But this question is exclusively for the women, right? So whatever we see on this particular slide, right, that women seek emotional comfort from their partners. Is this right? Do you actually seek such comfort from your partners? Just you can just give a thumbs up if it's so. I'm not. Oh yes, somebody has said absolutely, right. Yes, obviously. So I think more than anyone, more than anybody, it could be your parents, it could be your siblings, it could be your friends, it could be anyone. I think we seek emotional comfort the most from our partners, right? Because that's the one person who we can be filter free, right? You don't have to put on a facade. You don't have to try, like try to, impress them or please them, because this person has become such an integral part of your life. You seek the most emotional comfort from that person, right? And that's why talking about the dynamics and the conversations and communication between a husband and wife is so crucial. Okay, we will just look at a small situation here. Okay, so this is a husband and wife, and this wife is narrating the situation here. It was an exhausting day at work. I can't believe I'm forced to take so much responsibility. My boss just won't understand. So she is talking from a place of sadness, or let's say frustration or anger, right? And what does the husband say? Oh, why don't you try talking about it to your boss? He's giving her a solution. Okay, so the wife says, you don't get it. I can't just simply talk to my boss like that. So the husband is asking, then what's the point of cribbing about it to me? Okay. And the wife replies, it was my mistake that I chose to talk to you about it of all the other people. So the husband is clueless. What? I'm just trying to help you here. Okay. So what do you think is happening here? Can somebody tell me? What do you think about this conversation that has happened here? Someone? Anyone?
She just wants to vent, but he is giving solutions.
Absolutely, absolutely. She just wants to vent and take it all out of her system, but he is giving her solutions. And somebody else says misunderstanding from the man's side. Absolutely. Right? So you need to see. So she is operating from a purely emotional perspective, right? She's just angry, she's furious, she's frustrated. So she just wants to take it all out. Okay. And on the other hand, the husband's clueless. Why is she angry at me? I don't understand. What did I do? Right? So this is a typical conversation pattern that exists between a husband and wife. Now we will see what it is, what's the nature of it. Okay. So here, yes, one seeks reassurance, another offers solutions. That's what's happening here. Right. So now we will see what is the difference between the two, right? So one is seeking emotional reassurance, and another one is solving problems. So we will see the difference between the two. So emotional reassurance means you prioritize validating feelings and fostering connection. So now when a woman is trying to talk to her husband, it's a bit for connection. She's asking the husband to asking for some kind of a validation, like so the husband would be able to understand what she's going through, and he will be able to give her words of reassurance, right? To be able to actually make sense of her emotions, right? And on the other hand, problem solving focuses on practical action and resolving the root issue. So problem solving is to deal with the problem. Okay. So that is the difference between the two. And another one is the goal is to ensure the speaker feels heard and validated. Okay. So here the goal of the woman, the wife, here is so that her husband would hear her out, and he would validate what she has to say, her opinions, her emotions, her experiences, her thoughts. She wants him to validate it. Okay. She wants him to say that he completely understands and empathizes with her, right? But what does problem solving do? The goal is to fix the problem in hand. Okay. Now let me tell you, to the most of the men present here, a woman can most certainly fix her problems, right? But before that, she'll just cry a bit about it. Okay. She just has to like release that emotion, and then she'll talk. Okay. So here what happens is, in the problem solving pattern, the focus is on fixing the problem in hand. Okay. Which she can very well do for herself. Okay. And the next one is the primary focus is on the individual. So now when you give reassurance to someone, you place the focus on the person who's talking. You ensure that the person is feeling empathized, that the person is feeling seen and heard. Okay. But the thing with problem solving is the focus is placed on the problem. So in that example, the husband was not asking her how she was feeling. He was rather asking her to talk about it to her boss, and he was asking her, okay, if you don't want to talk about it to a boss, then why are you cribbing about it? Okay. So he doesn't understand that she's just looking for a place to simply talk. Okay. So now, yeah. So did you all get this? Did you all understand the differences? Okay. Great. All right. So we will move on to the next slide. Right. Now we come to the most important question. I think this is the question of the session, right? What do women need? So this is a question that most men ask. Okay. And this is also a question that most women struggle to let the men know, right? So let's just help men understand. Okay, today, women who are present here, let's just help men understand today. So what do women need? Can somebody just type it down, or you can unmute yourself and tell the men who are present here, what do women need in during their times of emotional crisis, things like that? What do women need?
Active listening.
Perfect. Yes, she needs active listening, definitely. Anything else? There's
Eye
so many
contact.
women here. Sorry, eye contact. Oh yes, definitely eye contact. And there's another person says support, acceptance. Another one says love, care, respect. Definitely 100%. I think these are all some excellent answers. Anything else? Anybody would like to add more to this?
Quality time. spend quality time.
Absolutely. Oh yes, quality time. Yes, I think that's an ongoing complaint that women tend to make, right? That my husband's not spending enough time. So what more? What more can they need, especially when they're overwhelmed? Understanding. Yes, understanding.
Assurance that they will stay with us, if no
100%
matter what.
assurance, a sense of security in the relationship, an assurance that that the husband is going to stay, is going to stick through it all. He understands. So these are all of these all of these make sense, right? And all of these are all the things that women need. And if men, who married men, if you're there, please take a note of all this. Okay, it's going to come very handy. Okay, so we will see what women need. Okay. Yes. So first thing is a space to speak their mind. Now she comes to you. She chooses you. Okay. Why? Because a husband easily becomes the most important person in a woman's life after marriage, right? And the role becomes stronger as they progress through the years, right? Their bond becomes closer. So whatever happens, she thinks of you the first. She wants to come to you before anybody else to just let it all out of her system, right? So she wants a space where she can speak her mind in a non-filtered way. She does not want to filter out what her thoughts are. She wants to be authentic and genuine with what she's feeling. Okay. And second is a partner who is willing to listen actively, right? I think most of us have got this right? So she wants somebody who would actually look at her in the eye and listen to her, right? And understand where she's coming from. If probably a husband is just going to scroll through his phone, and as she's just like pouring it all out, and probably she's like crying and bawling her eyes out. If her husband is just going to like scroll through the phone and just say yeah, 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 she's probably going to feel like he doesn't listen to me, he doesn't thoroughly understand what I'm going through. She could feel neglected. Okay. So she wants somebody who would actively listen to her. And third thing is genuine empathy. Now empathy is to be able to put yourself in another person's shoes and see what life looks like for them. Okay. So here a wife is looking for her husband to genuinely empathize with her, to genuinely empathize and understand her situation from her perspective. Okay, what could it look like for her? What could it look like being at home, doing all the things around the house, and also for women who have career, juggling back and forth between their careers and household things, and also managing kids. And what could it look like? So you could just try to put yourself in her place and see what her experiences might look like. Okay. And fourth one is a person who validates their emotions and experiences. So you don't just look at it and you don't just understand it, but you also validate. You also say things like, it's hard to live to do the things that you do. The kind of your role is indispensable, or I can't imagine what life would look like without you, for the kids and for the house. So these are all the things that women need to hear. Okay. Um, and what do men do instead? We will also look at that. Okay. So first thing is they approach the situation from a logical standpoint. So if she is coming from a place of emotions and a sense of sadness, or hurt or anything of that sort, they try to you know uh, approach a situation from a place of logic. Okay. They try to give logic, they try to help her make sense of the situation, or they try to give solutions to ease the situation. Okay. And now, when we say this, we don't have to necessarily demonize what men do for women. Okay. It doesn't necessarily mean that they are evil or they're just incapable of understanding women. It just means that what they usually do with their men folk, right, they think it applies to women as well, right? So the difference is women and men don't work the same way, right? So that's the only difference. So if they're trying to help their wives out, it does not mean that they want to neglect and make her experiences look insignificant. It's just the lack of awareness. Okay. And second one is they offer immediate solutions, which women can very well do for themselves, but they just want to talk about it. Okay. And third thing is assume personal responsibility for their partner's concerns. So this is also another situation that men most likely won't talk about, won't tell their partners. That is, when they find their partners in a certain situation, or in a problem, or in some kind of a crisis, they want to be there, they want to help them. Okay. They want to ensure that this problem is being taken care of. Okay, and their way of helping is by giving them solutions, is by logically helping them out in a situation. But a woman unfortunately does not operate at that time from a place of logic. Okay, she wants to deal with her emotions first. Okay, so they are taking personal responsibility for the partner's concerns. Okay, and that's what happens. So even when it's a situation of a conflict between a husband and wife, and when her wife is, let's say, saying something like, you don't spend time with me, the husband could think, could probably look at it as, a wife his wife not being satisfied, or his wife being in a stage, in a state of crisis or anything of that sort. And that's when he might feel like, okay, I have to solve this problem or something of that sort. So it could be perceived in different ways. Okay, and they use report talk, which is a briefing to solve a problem, when women use rapport talk. So women use rapport talk for, it's like sharing for connection, but they men use report talk, which is to report and ensure the problem is being solved. Okay, so this is the difference in which men and women handle a situation of crisis. Okay, so now we will just look at some most common communication problems that men and women engage in. Okay, that could cause an intense emotional rift between the two. Okay, so these are all some very common communication, the issues, mistakes that we make when we are communicating with each other. So first thing is criticism. Now I know that uh, this is something that most people in marriages do, criticize, right? Attacking a partner's character rather than a specific behavior. So even when we're criticizing, we don't just say, you don't do this, you don't do that. We say, you are mean, you are selfish, you're a rude person, or you're lazy. So these are all some of the things that some of the criticisms that we give out. Okay, for example, you're so selfish, instead of, I was hurt that you didn't help with dinner. Okay, like labeling that person, so that is criticism. Okay, contempt. So now contempt, let me tell you, is the worst of all. Why? Because you assume that you are superior, you are above them, and you give them, you make them feel as though, you make your partner feel as though they're inferior, right? So acting superior, using sarcasm, mocking, eye rolling, or insults, taking a dig at them. So these are all some of the things that people do in a fit of rage or in a fit of anger, right? So this is considered the most destructive, as it communicates disgust. Okay, so this is going to make the partner feel that they are not worthy, that they don't deserve respect, that they are, that they're not up to the same level as their partner. Okay, and this actually also, studies show that contempt can also actually show physically in the person who's receiving it. Okay, it can exhibit itself in the form of physical sickness and illnesses and things like that. Okay, and the third one is defensiveness, that is making excuses or playing the victim and refusing to take responsibility, which signals that you are not listening to your partner's concerns. Okay, so the first two is like a weapon. Okay, criticism and contempt are like you like attacking the other person. Okay, and defensiveness and stonewalling are shields, okay, that they use to protect themselves when the partner is attacking. Okay, so when your partner is saying, okay, why don't you do this for me, you never do it. Okay, so they use defensive, they could use defensiveness to just protect themselves. Okay, they could give excuses, they could play the victim, or they could just completely flip it over, and they could also gaslight. Okay, they could refuse to take responsibility, they could say, oh, what about this, you haven't done that, why are you asking me about this, it's not like you're perfect in everything. So that's just a form of defensiveness. Okay, to just block out the responsibilities that block out the concerns the partner has to tell the partner. Okay, and the fourth one is stonewalling. Stonewalling is literally that, literally you just become a stone wall. That person becomes a stone wall, they completely shut down, giving the silent treatment or withdrawing from interaction, which leaves the partner feeling abandoned and lonely. Okay, now there is a difference between staying calm and not responding when your partner is angry, and stonewalling. Okay, when you're calm, you can let the person know, say, I understand that you're angry right now, let's just take some time out and discuss this later. So that is a better way of doing it. But stonewalling is when you just completely shut them out. You completely keep quiet when they have so much to tell you, when they're just bursting out in anger. Okay, so the first two are weapons and the second two are shields. So this is some of the most common communication mistakes that we do. Okay, somebody says, okay, that's a question. So by the end of it we will come to questions. Okay, I will discuss that in the end. All right, so now I just want to know, have you, now that we are reading these these mistakes, do you find yourself, do you find this pattern reflecting in your marriage? Have you ever fallen into it, or do you feel like you experience that with your partner? Could somebody tell me, or you can just give a thumbs up if you find this kind of a pattern existing in your life? Anyone? Now, these patterns, these mistakes that we're talking about, it does not necessarily have to be a big issue also. Okay, it could be very small day-to-day problems, like who is folding the blanket, or who is cleaning the kitchen, or basic things, or who is taking the kid out, or who is just getting the milk. Basic day-to-day things, right? Even during those things, most likely in most cases, we could fall into all, either of them, I mean any of these, or one or two, or all of them, right? So, and but this, what happens is, does not directly deal with the communication issue, I mean deal with the major issue that we're going through, and it could intensify and catastrophize the situation even more. Okay, now I will move on to the next slide. Okay, so we will just look at this particular conversation between a husband and wife. Okay, and now I hope you will be able to make more sense, better sense of what we the communication mistakes when we understand this. Okay, so the husband says, did you pay the bills today? The wife says, how come it's my job all of a sudden? Okay, and the husband says, because you're the one who spends all our money. I just want you to see how deep you're getting us in debt. Actually, you're destroying our credit single handedly. You didn't pay them, right? So the wife replies, look, if you weren't such a loser at your lousy, low paying job, we'd have plenty of money to go around and no problem with the bills. So the husband replies, oh, so it's my fault now, huh? What about the $500 you spent on clothes last month? What do you think I am, made of money? Why don't you go out and get a job instead of sitting like a couch potato? So the wife replies, fine, you take care of our four kids and do all the cooking and cleaning and laundry, and I'll be happy to get a job, loser. Okay? So now, can someone tell me what's happening here? Did they use the communication mistakes here that we learned earlier about? Did this particular couple use the communication mistakes? Absolutely. So what
Oh,
kind? Yes. Was somebody going to say something? Okay. So which of the four do you think they used the most here? Or which one did they which are all the four communication mistakes they used here? Was it criticism? Was it defensiveness? Was it stonewalling? Or there was one more. One second.
criticism.
Absolutely, criticism, right? There was also, and was there contempt? You can just look at uh, the options here, and you can tell me. So there was definitely criticism, right? So where do we find the criticism here? So the husband is casually asking the wife, "Did you pay the bills today?" So there is no kind of that he's not insinuating anything here. So how does the wife respond back to it? She responds back from a place of defensiveness, or from a place of criticism, because from a place of defensiveness, because she's assuming that the husband is being critical here. Okay, so the wife is coming from a place of defensiveness. She is assuming that he is attacking her, and so she is just using the shield of defensiveness. How come it's my job? Okay, and now the husband actually gets into the into the place of criticism, right? And he's accusing her, and like you're the one destroying our money, and you didn't pay them because you spent it all, something like that. Okay, and now it's just escalating, more defensiveness and more criticism, more defensiveness. And as it goes further, it is also becoming a sense of contempt. So why don't you go out and get a job instead of sitting like a couch potato? So it shows that the husband's actually using, like contempt here. He's looking down at her, he's accusing her, is insulting her, right? And the wife goes on to give even more contempt. Like, why don't you do my job, as though you were capable of doing it? You're a loser, right? So that's what she says. So it's like one building up, it's stacking, right, one after the other. So there was a case of criticism here, there was also contempt, and there was defensiveness. So it's a raging conversation between husband and wife. But obviously there was no stonewalling here, because the conversation is going, the exchange is going back and forth, right? Okay. So now let us just look at this beautiful Quranic verse. Okay. And of his signs is that he created for you from yourselves mates, that you may find tranquility in them, and he placed between you affection and mercy. Indeed, in that are signs for the people who give thought. Now, I know that the contrast between the previous slide and the present slide is just starking, right? One is just filled with intense emotions, and another one is talking about a marriage that that is supposed to be a source of peace and tranquility for us, right? Now Allah tells us that the main purpose of marriage itself is to ensure to find that sense of peace with each other, a sense of solace and comfort in each other, right? So so then now we need to also understand that when something as beautiful as that, because I think all of us are in the pursuit of life, we are looking for that contentment and comfort and peace, right? So something that valuable, if you can find in marriage, it also most certainly comes with a lot of effort. It comes with a lot of hard work. And I can say this for sure, because I think everybody who is married will in one shape or form experience some kind of a struggle in their marriage, me included, right? All of us, we experience some kind of a communication problem, or hoping that the other person will understand them, or hoping that the other person will understand something else, or wanting to establish work as a team. So these are all some of the things a lot of us struggle with, right? So here I think this Quranic verse actually centers us, it grounds us, and it tells us that your marriage is supposed to be a place of comfort, and you need to strive to ensure that you reach that place of comfort, because Allah has assured for sure, he has placed it there. So it is for us, it is upon us to be able to find it there. I think it's a reminder for not just for you all, but also for myself, to be able to find it there, because Allah has placed it. Allah has given us a word that it is supposed to give us tranquility, because he has placed affection and mercy and love between the two of us, right? So marriage is a precious gift from Allah, designed for humanity to enjoy the comfort and tranquility that comes with companionship. Okay, embracing gentleness, love, and mutual respect can significantly enhance the joy of married life, transforming it into a blissful journey. Now, I know that there are a lot of concerns that we may experience in marriage, right? But it's probably in the way we handle, in the way we communicate it across, in the gentleness that we show, in the mercy that we are willing to show them when they are falling short. So these are all some of the things that could ensure that marriage can be sustained for a longer time, although it's easier said than done. It's not easy to master your emotions all the time. However, I think we can all strive to do that, okay? Because Allah has promised us that it is supposed to give you the most peace and the most tranquility than anything else, right? So now we will see what we can, do differently. What a wife and husband can both say or do differently. We will first look at the wife edition, okay? So when you find your husband not being able to empathize with you, or not understand where you're coming from, first thing is you need to understand that it is simply a lack of awareness and not an issue of intention. So when you are overwhelmingly, when you're just overwhelmed and you are extremely bogged down by the things around you or the situation happening, and you are going to your husband for comfort, and if he is not able to do it and rather give you a solution, then I just try to understand that it's not because of his ill intention. It's because he just simply lacks the awareness as to how women work and what exactly the expectations of women are. Okay, so that is what it means. It does not mean that they want to make you feel bad or they want to treat you poorly. Okay. Secondly, you can educate your husband about the ways in which they can help during times of emotional distress. Okay. When things are okay, when you know that when you know that things are working well between the two of you, when you both of you are in a good mood, you can in very nice ways let him know that that you would appreciate if the things that you would appreciate him doing for you when you are in a time of emotional distress. Okay, the ways in which he could address you, the things that he could tell you instead of complaining. So you can avoid when you're in a good mood, you can avoid telling him things like, why don't you do this, or you don't never listen to me, or you're always giving solutions for me, I hate that. Instead of making it as a thing of complaint, you could rather put it across as a gentle, a polite request. Okay, and most likely men are going to respond to that. Okay, you could tell them the ways in which you would appreciate his responses, the appreciate in which he deals with you. Okay. So, and third thing is, you can be specific with your expectations before you start sharing. Okay, so when you know that you're going to share and you're looking for a source of a sense of emotional comfort, and just let him know, like for example, I just want you to hear me out. Okay. Just I just want you to just acknowledge what I'm going through. Just be there, just listen to me. You don't even have to respond or tell me anything or give me solutions, just listen. So when you're very specific with your expectations, it becomes a lot easier for your man to understand what you are looking for. Okay, because women, the one tendency for women is we expect our husbands to understand. We expect our husbands to be intuitive and to be able to guess what we're looking for. But men don't work like that. They're very direct, very specific. So if you want something, you can openly and directly ask them about it. This is what I'm looking for. If you want to spend time with him, can we spend time with him? Can we spend time together from this time to this time? Will you be free? Will you be available? Can we go here? Or can we do this particular thing? Can we then get this done? So when you're being very specific and when you're being very open, it makes communication much easier. Okay, so you can do that. And fourth one is, acknowledge the partner's efforts when they try, and correct them gently if they make mistakes. So obviously we're humans, right? So most likely the husband could make mistakes. He could he could not do it the way you want, right? So you need to understand that although it may not be the best way, or it may not be the ideal way, you can try to acknowledge his efforts. You can say something like, I really appreciate you trying to help me out here. But I'm probably looking for something like this. Would you be able to help me with that? So that is going to help him understand that you actually see and value his efforts. Okay, and most men would appreciate their wives appreciating them, their efforts. Okay, so is there anything else that you think we can add to this list, that that you think is more it could be more relevant, or you think it will be also very effective? Anything else as wives we can add here? Any other expectation, or any other uh, anything else that a husband could do differently? So as I told earlier, this is I want this place to be a place of mutual learning. So obviously, if you're going to share something, a lot of others will also be able to benefit from what you have to say. Okay, so you can if you wish to, if you wish to, you can set it in the chat box. Okay, so I guess we'll move on to the husband edition then. So these are some things that wife can do, And the next thing is we're going to look at what the husband can do or say differently. Okay, so first thing is, um, remember that she only wants your presence and your genuine empathy. So when your wife is coming to you, even even from a place of anger, even if she has concerns towards you, just try to understand that she wants your presence and your empathy the most, right? Even if you are not going to immediately solve the problem for her, even if you don't have, even if you are not going to change your ways, or even if you are, too tired to give solutions or anything of that sort, just know that she just wants you to hear her out. That's it. Okay, and you will do a big favor doing that, doing just that. You could just say, okay, yes, something like that, and she'll be the happiest wife. Okay. Second thing is, you don't have to fix her problems. However, you can help if they ask you openly, right? So you can avoid taking personal responsibility for for her situation. You don't have to feel like you are the one who's supposed to deal that situation or solve that problem for her. She can do it, and she might do it. And there could also be times when she will come to you openly asking for your opinions, for your suggestions, and that is the time you can definitely help her, and she will truly appreciate your ideas and suggestions. Okay, so you don't have to feel like you have to sort this for her. You have to solve the problem for her. Okay. And third thing is, give them words of reassurance to let them know that they are seen and heard. Okay, so words of reassurance like, I can imagine how difficult that must be for you. It sounds really exhausting. How did you deal with it? Or something like, you know uh, I can see how frustrated you are, or I can hear the tension or the anger in your voice. You sound really furious. So something like that. So these things will let her know that that you are actually listening to her, and it's going to make her feel like she's being heard. Okay. And when you're saying something like, when you're going to ease it for her, it's okay, I we can sort this out. I know that you're very furious and angry, or you're really sad and depressed about it, but we can get it sorted out, or something like that. You will be able to get through this. Or when you're just going to give her that comfort, you're going to let her feel as though she has already solved the problem, even when it's still very much existing. Okay. And the fourth one is, avoid minimizing her experiences or emotions, and try to see them from where they stand. And so when sometimes when the husband is going to say, why do you make a big deal out of it? Why are you fussing so much about it? Or you are the only one who is always complaining. Why are you nagging? Why are you something like that? Okay, so this is just a small problem, you're just blowing it out of proportion. So when you're going to say things like that, it could make her feel like she's not worthy, or she cannot find that comfort or that sense of warmth in you. Okay, so she could probably, so this is the place where sometimes she could probably seek that kind of a comfort from a friend or from a family member, when she could do that with you. Okay. So so avoid minimizing her emotions and experiences, and as a woman, try to see what could possibly be going on with her, and try to see her from where she stands. Okay. um, I would like to ask again, if anybody would like to add, the men who are present here, anybody would like to add a point or two to this? Anyone? All right. Okay. So, are you all with me? As in, did you all understand what I have to say? Did you all were you all were you able to relate to what I'm saying? Perfect. Any more response? Oh yes. Okay. All right. So Alhamdulillah. So you are able to relate to what I'm saying, because I'm sure this is a situation that a lot of you found yourselves in, right? Such kind of it doesn't have to be a major issue. Also, it could be sometimes a culmination of so many small problems that one day it blows out of proportion, right? So these are all some things that we can remember as a husband and as a wife when we are dealing with our partners. The way in which we communicate, ensuring that we use gentleness, right? I think the best, I don't think we have to look for examples elsewhere when we have the best examples in our religion. Okay, we have the prophets, we have the sahabas, so they have taught us how to live our whole lives, especially our marital life, right? So when we take the life of Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, we know that he has dealt with so much mercy and kindness towards his wives, right? When we hear Aisha Rilana talking about her life with the Prophet, we know how he always knew the best thing to say. He always dealt with her with a lot of respect and a lot of gentleness, and vice versa. We also know that the wives have held a lot of respect for the husbands, and they also always put across their requests politely, with a lot of respect and a lot of dignity, right? And there is a book called Love and Respect. Okay, so I think that will beautifully sum up what we're looking for, right? So that as women, she looks for love the most in her relationship. Okay, she wants to be seen, she wants undivided attention, she wants quality time, she wants her husband to make her feel like she's loved and she's the most important woman in his life, right? And on the other hand, what men prioritize the most is respect. Okay, he wants to be seen as a leader of the family. Uh, he wants to be felt as though he is irreplaceable in that family, right? He more than love, for a man respect matters the most. So when a woman is giving a good deal of respect to the husband, and when a man is giving a good deal of love to his wife, it's a beautiful combination. Okay, so I think you can go check out that book called Love and Respect, and I think it would beautifully explain how men and women operate differently. Okay, and the expectations of men and women, and how both of us have to use a lot of hikmah in dealing with the other gender. Okay. um so, just a little, there's a beautiful hadith where the Prophet ﷺ is saying, the world is enjoyment, and the best enjoyment of the world is a righteous woman. Okay, so this is not just to emphasize on a woman, it is to emphasize more on a beautiful marital life, right? And the best kind of enjoyment is the one that you can find in your married life, with your partner, and the kind of comfort and the kind of peace and the kind of tranquility that you can find with them, you most probably cannot find it elsewhere, right? And there's another hadith which is which goes like, there is nothing like marriage for the two who love one another, right? So just this is just the, best thing that could possibly happen in a person's lifetime, right? If two people are married, and if they are genuinely in love with each other, and if they're genuinely working on making their marriage work, there's nothing like that. Okay, as the Professor Awesome says. All right, so I think with this we can wrap up our session. Okay. So Jazakallah khairan for coming, and I really appreciate each and everybody's active participation. I know that a lot of you were willing to send messages, and you were interacting well. Okay, so now I really appreciate all your warm presence today. So you can feel free to send any kind of questions that you could possibly have in the chat box, and I will try to answer them for you. Or you can also unmute yourselves if you want to, and you can answer question. Anything is okay. Okay, so Omniword has to answer Omniword's question. So he is asked, how can we better understand each other emotionally and communicate in a healthier way during the situation? So I know that when it's long distance, it makes communication much harder, right? Because you can't see them, face to face. You can't understand their bodily gestures and everything of that sort. But you could probably try asking her, what could possibly be going on with her. Is it the inability to spend time with her that she is concerned about? Or if you could particularly get what her exact concern is it the quality time, or is it anything else that she's probably looking for? And if you could make adjustments along the side, that might be helpful. Okay. And you also mentioned that it could be hard for her to manage her emotions, right? So if she is somebody who has always had this issue, then she could take external help to help her deal with her emotions. Okay. Or if you, whatever strategies that you are already using, you could help her with that. So but try to understand the root cause of her anger. Where is her anger coming from, and why is it so difficult for her to manage it at that time? So if you probably have a conversation with her about that and be able to understand where she's coming from, then it might become a lot easier for you to handle that case. Okay. Another user has asked if men also want quality time, or are they fine without it. I think that is an individual case, but mostly the patterns that we have been seeing in therapy, with a lot of clients during therapy sessions, is that women seem to be asking for the quality time more than men, right? They want to spend more time with the husbands, but they're always complaining about the husbands not spending time with them. But that does not have to be a gender situation. Okay, there are some men who might feel that as well. So if that is a priority, or if that is a concern that is being raised by the partner, time and again, it can be both the husband or the wife, so it can be taken into serious consideration. Okay. Because we all operate from different places, we all have different kinds of needs, right? For, I'm sure it might be very typical, or you might have heard this before, the different kinds of love languages that we all operate from, right? So for each of us, the way we receive and give love is so different. Okay. So if we try to understand where our partners, the which language our partners are using, and trying to give priority and emphasis on that, then the other person could feel very emotionally satisfied in the marriage. Okay. So for those of you who don't know what love language is, I'll just briefly explain what it is. It's just the different ways in which we communicate love. Okay. In which we receive and give love. It could be in a form of quality time. It could be acts of service, that is when the other person helps them, or when they're willing to do actions, or like help them around. So that is one way of doing it. Or for some people it's gifts. They would love to receive and give gifts. And for other people it is physical touch. They physically express their love. Or it could also be in the form of words of appreciation, right? Some people love to hear how much the partner loves them, or if they verbally acknowledge their efforts and their presence, and they will also do the same thing for their partners. So these are all some of the five most common love languages. But now we are seeing that different other kinds are also coming up. For, I heard one of my clients, it was very interesting. One of my clients said that their love language was food. So if their wife is making delicious food for them, so that is their love language. So it's, you can't just put it in a box, right, and say that this is it, right? It could be unique for different individuals. So just try to understand what reaches straight to the heart, and try to give priority to that. Okay. So, any other questions? You can feel free to ask me. Any other questions that you want me to address? Anybody else?
Alhamdulillah, we have come to the end of today's